I'm sure if we took a poll of everyone's favorite Saluki assistant coach, it would be this guy. We don't need a poll, though. Mcleran joins us, linebacker coach for the Saluki linebackers. Coach Mac, being out here at practice, you guys had 2 days of practice, off day, and came back. How did you guys, one, handle the off day, and two, get right back after it? It seemed like the energy was really high out here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think starting it off with the off day yesterday, I think Coach Hill and Coach Prawn had a really good plan for us of taking advantage of that day, working with Meade, making sure the guys are getting their legs back. Obviously, day one with the heat was obviously, you know, an obstacle that you got to handle and a challenge that we got to work through, but everybody's got to work through that, you know. And I think day two, you saw obviously a little bit milder, and so we were able to kind of execute at a higher level. The communication was there. We were kind of feeling sorry for ourselves with the heat, I think, at times. And then, you know, that off day was really good to kind of get those guys' legs underneath them, let us go over some installs, maybe some difficult pictures, and work through some of those issues. And then today, you know, I mean, something we talk a lot about on defense is the way we play. And I think, you know, if you ask Coach Prawn, if you ask our guys, first thing we want people to say is not, oh, we're this, we're that. It's those guys fly around, they hunt the ball, they do a lot of good things from that standpoint. And as far as a position group goes, you know, our pace and our violence and our consistency are things that we're going to talk a lot about. And those guys understand, you know, that our consistency and our violence paired with the pace that we're going to play with, those are the things that we need to hang our hat on. And again, once we have that pace, now we have the ability to go practice. And I think understanding that from a second level standpoint and how those guys have to become really the spearhead of that and really the, you know, the catalyst for getting us going from a pace standpoint, getting a lot of juice, being positive, bringing the energy that they want to see. And I think that was good to see today. Again, that doesn't mean it's going to be always, but for today, we handled that today. We'll worry about tomorrow, but I think the guys did a good job just applying that pace today.
Colin Bohannock, you were excited about him a year ago. Now, of course, he's back after last year getting injured early on in the season. The biggest differences you see from him in a positive way from what you were watching him in fall camp last year to this year?
Yeah, I think it's confidence. You know, I think it's a guy that's got that chip on his shoulder. You know, we talked about this in the first meeting. You know, the highest performing people have that chip on their shoulder, whether it's a doctor, a teacher, a nurse, an artist, you know, football player, football coach. You know, you have that chip on your shoulder and the attitude you bring. So he's not looking for excuses or ways out. He's looking to be challenged, and I think what we're seeing today and what we've seen the first 3 days is a dude that's embraced challenges. And, you know, playing a little bit of different spots now, being able to move him around. He spent a lot of time with me last year, and I think that was really good for him, is you know, us getting on the same page, being able to have that verbal cut back and forth of dialect. Hey, this is what we're talking about. This is what the stress is. And he's able to put both hands around that. And I think, you know, it's good for him to have days where he's got to work through issues, where he's got to, you know, oh, this is a bust or this is stress to your new fit and how this piece relates. It's good for him to be challenged like that. And it's, you know, it's not a guy that's going to run away from those challenges. And to see that guy run headfirst into that and embrace that there's growth. You heard it today. You saw it today, like leaning into it. He's not running away from that. And I think, again, that starts with Coach Hill's expectations for the team, starts with Coach Prawn's expectations for the unit, and then, you know, bleeds into his expectations for himself and our expectations as a room. And he understands those and really leaning into those. So that's really, really cool to see for him.
Guy a year ago that I think you and most of the staff were like, man, wait till he's healthy. He's going to have an opportunity. It's Andrew Bain. Yes. And Beamer, as you guys call him. What does stand out about him now, especially with him being healthy? Like, what does he bring?
Yeah, I mean, Beamer's a workhorse for us. And I think, you know, with the things that he's going to be asked to do this year, not only from an expectation standpoint, from a communication standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, but the things that stand out about him, I think if you go back, I would say you start in November, December of last year, and you look from there to today, that dude has taken advantage of every day. Not that other guys hadn't, but I think consistently, day in and day out, that's a dude who's worked very, very hard, spent hours on his body, getting himself healthy. And the thing for us, and, you know, me and him talked a lot about this, is we got confidence in him. We're believing in him. We need him to be that force for us. And he's accepting that challenge and accepting that role. And it's a dude that when he's out there and he's going, he's our workhorse. He understands he's got to be the engine of us. He's got to drive the expectations of what we need. And he takes a lot of pride in that. And that doesn't mean you're everybody's favorite person or anything like that. The guys love him. His teammates love him. We love him as a staff. That's a dude that your chips are in the middle with. That dude's going in there with you. And you got his back. He's got yours. That's a dude you're going down dark alleys with. And he's accepting of those challenges that are coming.
Stephen Green may be a guy you look at and go, man, he doesn't look very physical, imposing. But, man, when he is on the field, he just has a way to match what you demand from the position. What does he bring, even though he may not be the most physical linebacker in terms of stature?
Yeah, I think Steve's a great representation of what those guys have challenged themselves to be. And again, a guy that made his name on special teams 2 years ago, and I think if you ask him, he'd be the first one to tell you that production and that effect that he had on that unit last year wasn't his expectation. And again, a guy who understands that he's pushing Presto. He's pushing a lot of guys in that room, a workhorse guy. And for us, there's the athleticism and there's the physicality, and you hit it right on the head. I mean, when we talk about the things that are important to us, the violent consistency and matching pace and setting that pace, Stephen Green's a dude that's going to do that, and he understands what that expectation is, and he's just looking for another day, looking for another day, looking for another day. And that's really what we're looking for out of the group right now, is we're not looking for, hey, this is a polished product. It's not. You saw it today. There's a lot of bad. There's a lot of good. It's not about good and bad. It's about improvement. Coach Braun hit it at the end. It's about this is our minimum standard. And Steve's made tremendous strides from the offseason, gaining weight, working on the hip mobility, working on those things, and then investing in himself, getting his body ready to play. And I think you're going to see some opportunities for a guy that's worked for him. And, you got to get behind a guy like that. You love to have him in there.
We spotlight Chris Presto's journey ever since he's been here in terms of when he came in as a freshman and how he really embraced getting stronger in the weight room with Meade. He's no doubt filled in to just being one of your key guys in the room. Again, the expectation that you really have for a guy like himself.
Yeah, he's got to be dynamic. He's got to be dynamic. And, you hit it right on the head there. Starting coming in at 195 pounds, you're like, We'll see what happens. But again, similar story to a lot of these guys, similar to Shane Roth last year, similar to Stephen Green again this year, a guy that made his name starting for us on special teams, and embracing what that allows you to do, allows you to get the pace of the game, get the feel of the game. We're going to go as he allows us to go. The dynamic that he's able to give us will determine how dynamic we can be defensively. And again, it's a guy who's now 230 pounds, coming in from 195, understanding the physicality. Last year, I think it was a little touch and go for him. I think he'd say that too, is he didn't get exactly what he wanted, maybe from a physical standpoint every time, but he got his face in the fan. And that, again, matching the pace and getting exposure to it is really the start of the process for him. And to see the growth that we've made from last year to the end of the season, when he's kind of starting to get the confidence going, to now, is he understands what that role's got to be. He's got to be dynamic. He's got to be able to be versatile in many different aspects. And I think Coach Braun is able to explain what that position needs to be to him and the demands that he has as a coordinator for that position. It starts with him and being able to lay those expectations out very clearly, and Presto's able to relate to that and put a lot of acceptance on that job. Is there's going to be a spotlight on that, and he has to embrace that, and he's done a great job of that. And that position for us, he's got to be dynamic. It's got to be a guy that's going to be a dynamic player, and he's got to show up every snap for us.
It's really hard when we do these position previews, especially when we get to your group, because it's like, all right, when we can only pick three guys because your room is just stacked with so many guys that we can't all get to. How do you balance that competitive nature in the room? There's only a few amount of spots of guys who can start, yet the culture within your room is really high. A lot of the guys credit you. What do you credit as finding that balance of the right mentality, everything you've talked about, to also speaking of, hey, this is a room where Saluki fans can get used to. There's going to be a lot of names that they could potentially see play this year. Yeah,
and I think, starting it off as a culture, as a standard of a program, it starts with Coach Hill. The first thing he talks about is consistency being a superpower. And, that bleeds into our culture defensively that Prawn has laid. But as far as a room standard, those guys credit me. We are a unit. We operate together. There's no tiered system. The piece is not more important than the whole. Right? The pieces make it up, but the whole is what matters, and that you're not going to make every play. But the whole standard of operating doesn't matter if we're up 50, down 50. We're looking for a process-oriented approach. The result's going to take care of itself, and I think the standard that those guys have set with each other, yes, my job is to enforce that standard and hold those guys to the level that they've shared with me. But again, there's the expectation amongst each other, and I think we're on the same page with that. I'm a big boy, they're big boys, as we have the ability to be accountable with each other. Yeah, the volume goes up. The volume goes up from a standard of accountability, and those guys demand that from me. They understand that I'm going to demand that from a high level from them. And as far as the competition, competition goes, like that's what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that are leaning into the competition. You're not going to be able to make every play every time. Our job is to put the best people out there for the team. And I think if there's one thing you can take away from that room, it's the love that they have for each other, yes, but they want to win. They want to win. They want to compete. They want to win. They want to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented. And from a competition standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, that's what you're looking for. Is you're looking for guys that are going to run towards the competition, run towards the challenges, run towards the gray area. And that to a standard of play that's really bled into us as a room for the last 4 years of building that. I think it started with, when guys started here with Como and Chris Harris and Zach Barola and those guys, and it's bled over now. Bohannick's been here going into this third year. We've had Shug for 2 years. Beamer's been a huge part of that process, and Presto's seen that thing grow. Miles Wash has been here. Colby Ryan's been in the room. Stephen Green. Like, those guys have been part of this process, and they've chosen to stay here and compete with each other and lean into each other. And I think that's something that I take a lot of pride in, is the way they are with each other. There is friction at all times. And that's okay for me, right? We need that friction. We need Shug to rub people the wrong way. We need Beamer to be on top of people. We need Bohannick to set a standard of operating. And I think all of those guys lean into the expectation that they have set as a cultural standard in our room. I'm just driving the bus. You know what I mean? I'm just here to make sure the kids can get on the ride. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to keep us on the rails. But no, I think when you think about the standard that we have as a defense, obviously starting with Coach Prawn, but Coach Hill setting that standard of consistency being a superpower. And you got to give a lot of credit to Prawn. As Prawn's came in and he's been demanding, he's been clear, he's been detailed, and those guys have responded to that. There was gray area at times that we've had, maybe, hey, this, that. Prawn has put spotlight on it, and there is no gray area. That means we're watching bad clips together, we're watching good clips together, we're getting on the same page. And I think the detail that Prawn provides these guys allows these guys to play with the pace that we need them to play with. There is no question that those guys have to be able to set the standard of tempo, pace, and violence that we need to have, because that will bleed out and infect other rooms. And I think that's the nature and the standard that Coach Prawn has set for us as a defense. You got to give him credit for that. And that dude's been demanding since day one for that culture and that standard, and it hasn't wavered, hasn't blinked, and those guys have bought into him hook, line, and sinker. So I'm just driving the bus, baby.
I'll say this, Coach Mack. I tend to listen pretty well during your practices, and maybe I've missed it, maybe I haven't picked up. I'm a little disappointed that none of your linebackers have any sort of switch for scheme called Brooksy. I really thought there would be a quick word choice of naming something after Brooksy. Could you think of one? Is there a good idea where you could maybe get that integrated, or no way, shape, or form?
Yeah, if you make a Brooksy check, everybody's just going to start yelling. Everybody's going to start jumping up and down, getting excited, and then they might just fall down and start taking naps. So I don't know if we're quite to that level yet of a Brooksy check, but maybe we could get a Miller check for Coach Prawn going, something like that. But no, it's awesome to have him out here and to see those guys come love him up. He was going through some signals with him over here yesterday. So, but no, it's awesome to have him around for sure.